Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a video covering two new mice from Pwnage in their carbon fiber line. This is the Trinity carbon fiber as well as the Stormbreaker Max. This is a completely different ergonomic size than the prior Stormbreaker. The Max I actually do think might fit into a category of one of the best large ergo mice on the market. The Trinity, because there are so many symmetrical mice, it really is going to boil down to your size and shape preferences, and we're going to get into both in terms of build quality, in terms of performance, and things that they compare most to. Obviously, both of these mice are somewhat similar to things already released by Pwnage. But to show you guys what you get in the box of the Trinity, you do get a number of goodies. You will get a little manual. You get a set of grips that are kind of like a DIY. You get form-fitted grips as well. And additionally, a cable, as well as extra dots, extra form-fitted skates. You can move the sensor in a forward position as well as a lower position, or you can keep it centered. Centered is, of course, a default, which is what I've been primarily doing all of my testing on for the purposes of this video. And then for the Stormbreaker Max carbon fiber, I actually did get the custom edition here, but this is quite the unboxing experience. You get the little box which contains a lot of the goodies. Here you get a pair of glass skates here that are, I believe, form-fitted as well to the Stormbreaker Max. Other than this little limited edition holographic card here, which is a nice touch, let's open up the goodies that come within and see what this is packing here. Just dump it all out of there. I'm assuming it's similar to the Trinity, but again, you got the do-it-yourself grips here. You've got the form-fitted grips. You do get the manual, the screwdriver, and then the form-fitted skates, as well as a set of dots. The PTFE, default PTFE here is actually not all that bad. I don't think that you would necessarily have to change out your skates either unless you really prefer, like I do, third-party skates at this point in the game. You can see the default position again on the sensor is the center position. You can move that also up or further down. So you get quite a lot of goodies here in the box. And this edition does come with a mouse pad as well. The thing you need to know about both of these mice, again, carbon fiber composites, they are both using a modified 3950 sensor. I believe they advertise it as the Pwnage Zero sensor. It's a modified PixArt, but both come with the color designated or color coordinated dongles at 8000 hertz polling, and they both use Omron opticals, which my implementation on Mouse 1 and Mouse 2 have been actually quite nice in both of these mice. The only thing I can really point out is that for a carbon fiber composite, obviously you're paying a little bit of an upcharge. You want that build quality to have a differential for the better for its sturdiness. Here, when I do push the sides of the mouse inward, it does feel very sturdy on the Trinity, but the issue here is I do feel flex from the bottom plate where the bottom plate hits the sidewall here on the top shell. And if you are squeezing quite hard in game, you may feel what feels like a little bit of like creaking or a little bit of movement from that bottom plate. For me, it's nothing that I felt in game with my grip, and it's nothing that I think would deter you from playing your best on these two mice. The big build quality concern for me, nothing again that you will ever feel in game from my testing from actual performance. But if you do apply a light amount of force on the bottom of the mouse, you will feel these little ridges here, these cutouts. They just flex a lot. Even with just a light amount of pressure inward, it flexes a lot. So you just want to make sure when you are setting this down on something, or if you are picking the mouse up and putting it somewhere, just be very careful with the bottom shell here. It is the weakest point of the shell from what I've been able to tell from my testing. In terms of Mouse 1 and Mouse 2, I do think that the buttons here feel quite good. They are a little bit more tense towards the very, very bottom where these cutouts are. As you get to right above the cutouts, all the way to the top, they do feel rather consistent, but they will feel the lightest towards the very, very tippy top. In terms of side flex on the Trinity, there is like really no side flex on Mouse 1 and Mouse 2. One of the best features on this mouse in general from a build quality perspective and pre-travel is super, super minimum. It's like maybe just a little bit of flex in the material, and then you get that actuation of the switch, and very little to no post-travel on mouse 1 and mouse 2. So the buttons overall for the main buttons on both of these mice, those Omron opticals just feel really, really crisp, tactile, and poppy. They match well. They feel great with the switch and material combination. The side buttons are quite poppy and crispy as well. But when you do have, like, if you rest your finger on one of the side buttons and you're moving your finger around a little bit, these side buttons do have a lot of play on both of these mice. You can see how much sway there is both left and right, and you can create a little gap in between these side buttons there. There's not a whole lot of flex that I can feel outward towards when you're pushing the bottom of the button. And overall, again, with in-game usage, I did not find there to be any issues for how I grip and how I hold the mouse. So I don't think these side buttons will cause any issues. Scroll wheel feels really nice, both tactile pops going both forward and downward. And mouse 3 I just found to be a little tense. I wish it was just a tiny, tiny bit looser. But overall, the button experience and the overall feel of the mouse for the Trinity feels great. I do think the coding, for me, it feels okay. It's kind of like a happy medium. I think it could be a lot better. It does feel slippery at times in my humid environment, but overall, I don't feel like I would need grips. So again, something that wasn't really bothering me to any great extent, but more slippery than something like a endgame gear mouse like the OP1 or the XM2, and more slippery than some of the new Pulsar coatings, and definitely not quite as good as something from Razer like the Smooth Touch Dave. So again, it will build up a little bit of moisture, but overall, like, again, good enough that I don't think I would need any grips. Now, the Stormbreaker Max, my build quality here is much better than what I had on the Trinity in terms of side flex. I can't get there to be any real feeling of movement of the bottom shell. When you start touching the bottom again, it's the weakest point. It flexes just as easy as the Trinity did, but overall, again, nothing that I feel moving as I'm applying pressure in one direction on the top shell, a lot of pressure downward. So I don't think it's going to be anything you're feeling in game. These side buttons, super crisp, tactile, responsive. They feel great in in-game use. But again, the same thing, if you are somebody who rests your fingers on these side buttons, the buttons can have a lot of play, a lot of movement, as you guys can see there. The main buttons, same thing, super stiff towards the cutouts on the bottom. As you get right above the cutouts, they just feel super, super consistent until you get all the way to the top again, and they feel a little bit lighter. The sweet spot right where the switches are, it feels really, really nice. And again, almost no movement on mouse 1 and mouse 2, like literally basically none on mouse 1 and just a little bit on mouse 2. So I didn't feel any switch grind. I didn't feel any movement on my main buttons on either of these mice in game. Scroll wheel feels great, tactile, with very noticeable steps, both forward and back. And mouse 3 actually feels more spammable to me on my Max than it does on the Trinity. So both of these, in terms of the overall build integrity and the coatings, I think the build integrity just could feel slightly better from when you pick it up and you're playing around with it in your hand. But overall, in-game usage, like, I don't think that you would ever have any issues with this mouse at all. And that is the important thing. Coating, to me, could have been a little bit better, but they provide you so many grips in the box that if you have an issue with it, you can just use some of the grips. But the mouse is very pretty. I would not necessarily myself want to throw any grips on there, so I get it. But overall, I do think it is a solid showing here from Pwnage in terms of the overall feeling of the mouse and the overall build quality. Also, another thing that I think needs to be noted for the shape comparisons, the Trinity is basically a Razer Viper Mini Signature Edition, or like the Pwnage Sim that came out quite a while ago. It's really one of the only things out there that matches very closely to a Razer Viper Mini Signature Edition. So if you wanted something like that, but in different colorways with a carbon fiber composite instead of magnesium, it really is a fantastic mouse in terms of its overall in-hand feel and performance. For me, the Trinity and the Viper Mini Signature Edition have always been a little bit too small for me because of that grip width towards the front of the mouse. It does feel great. I have a lot of fun with it. I love the Trinity, but for me, my better performance, my more comfortable performance was on the Stormbreaker Max. I think this is a very unique feeling ergo on the market because there's not a lot of big ergos. You've got the G Pro Superlight Dex, and then you have a lot of the stuff from Zowie like the EC1. But in terms of large ergos, to me, this feels more like your typical ergo, and it feels higher and a little bit wider than something like a Death Adder. So for me, this kind of fills a sweet spot, something that Zowie isn't really providing us, a lightweight, large ergo. And it just has a great in-hand feel in terms of its sturdiness, its click feel. The Omron Optical is feeling fantastic. For me, this is, I think, one of the best ergos in terms of large ergos on the market right now. Obviously, if you're into smaller ergos, you've got the Vaxi E1, you've got a few more options there that are really, really good. But for this branch of the market, it would be hard to say that this is not competing for one of the best large ergos. It really does feel great, and my performance on it has been really, really sturdy. Just a really comfortable mouse for my size hands. Again, a little bit over 21.5. It just does feel great in the palm. A few other things to note, the mice do come in with different variations. I did get the one with the no holes, no cutouts on the side. My Max comes in at 48 grams in the carbon fiber composite, and my Trinity with Silver Fox dot skates instead of default skates like my Max comes in at 40 grams. Both of these mice utilize a web-based driver, so you don't have to download or install anything onto your PC. You can change your DPI, your Hertz polling rate, all through that web-based software. I do think that both of these mice, if you are looking for sizes or shapes like this, you definitely are getting something that other companies aren't providing. For instance, Razer has not released the Viper Mini in a everyday available type unit. The Signature Edition continuously sells out, and this is going to be the closest thing on the market to a Razer Viper Mini Signature Edition. I also think it's a great mouse. All of the build quality things that I mentioned are not things that I think will ever affect you in game. The side buttons feel great when you hit them as intended. And again, I don't have any flex on that bottom shell. The Max does fill a size that is larger than the X-Lite Medium, and in the hand, it just comes off a little bit, feels a little bit fatter, and it sits a little bit higher. So again, it's going to be for those who are looking for a larger ergo mouse, and I do think it is going to feel like one of the best large ergos on the market right now. It just feels like a nice unit in the hand, and again, those Omron Opticals sound great. And I think one of the things they focused on here is definitely the side flex on mouse 1 and mouse 2. They're tensioned very well and just feel great. So guys, that is really going to be it for this one. I think Pwnage has released 2 solid mice for people who may be looking in these size shape brackets, and the in-game performance, again, I had no issues. So guys, that's going to be it for this one. I hope it helped. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel. See you guys in the next review. Peace.